Good morning. Welcome to Kate's Kitchen. I'm Kate, and this is Karib. We're here today to talk to you about one of the most popular seasonal foods for this time of year, the pumpkin. A lot of folks love pumpkin pies, but they don't really know how to get pumpkin pies from a fresh pumpkin. This is not the way most people get pumpkin. They get it from a can. But I'm going to show you the way to get a better tasting pie, pumpkin pie, and use pumpkin in other ways. Most notably, we're going to show you how to dehydrate pumpkin so you can store it long-term on your pantry shelf and rehydrate it whenever you want pumpkin bread or pumpkin pie or something of that nature. So, without further ado, Karib and I are going to show you the first step, which is how to cut up a pumpkin. This is a pretty big pumpkin. I was gifted this pumpkin by a friend, and I'm now going to show you guys how to cut it open and what to do. I have a rather large knife. It's very sharp. This is the major thing we need because pumpkins have a very thick and hard skin on them. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to take this sharp knife and cut out the stem right here. As I said, pumpkins have thick skin and it's pretty hard to cut them. From what I've been reading, pumpkins were not originally this kind of a fruit. They had much less of the meat inside, which is what we use, and they had a lot more seeds. And the first people who scientists believe used pumpkin used them for the seeds rather than the flesh. Eventually we got what we have now, which is a great big fruit with lots of wonderful meat and some tasty seeds. Alright, I've gone around the center. And now, we just pull it out. And inside there is the meat that we're going to get. Now, I'm going to take my big cleaver and I'm going to cut this thing in half. Now, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to pull all the seeds out. And the seeds grow inside this cavity, as I said, and they grow on strings, a stringy material, like this. And all of the seeds, see if I can get one out with some seeds, all of the seeds are attached to that stringy material. This pumpkin has a spot that's kind of bad, and rather than take a chance, I'm going to cut that section out. There. Now we take our spoon and we scrape down. Now you see the seeds again? I don't know if you can see that or not. There's not a lot of good light, but the seeds are attached to the string. There we go. All those seeds, and those can be roasted and make a wonderful snack. They can also be saved and used to plant pumpkin next year. So no matter what we do, we're not going to throw these seeds away. We'll either eat them or plant them to have more to eat next year. Because once we get that all cleaned out, we're going to roast the pumpkin itself in a 425-degree oven. We're going to put it cut side down in a pan with an edge. We're going to put a small amount of water in there. We don't want a whole lot of water because if you put too much, you won't roast your pumpkin, you'll boil it, and that's not what we want. Roasting it really brings out the sweet, nutty flavor of the pumpkin. There you are, a big piece of pumpkin. Most of the strings are gone, and it's ready to go in the pan. Here's my roasting pan, and I'm going to put the pumpkin, like I said, cut side down. And when I get more pumpkin in here, I'll put it all in the oven and roast it for a little over an hour at 425. I'll tell you what, I will bring you back when I have all of this cut up and ready to go in the oven. We're back. I have 3 large pieces of pumpkin in my pan. The stove has been preheating and it's ready to go. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to pour 1 cup of water in the bottom of this pan. Now this is a lot of pumpkin, so although 1 cup sounds like a lot of water, it really isn't. And especially when you consider that it's going to be 425 degrees in that oven. So we'll put that in there. That will steam and help cook the pumpkin. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to cover it with a large sheet of aluminum foil. I want to capture that steam inside, ready to go. The lights kind of make it look weird, don't they? Alrighty, we're going to put this in the oven, and I'll see you back in about an hour when it's time to take it out. We're back. It's been almost 2 hours. About 45 minutes in, I took the aluminum foil off, put them back in, and I've just taken them out. As you can see, there are holes poked in each piece. And those are where I took the fork and gently stabbed it to see if it was soft. Now what we have to do is let it cool, and then we'll peel them. The pumpkin is now completely cooled, and it's time to peel it off and save the good meat. So, it should be fairly easy to peel. Turn it up. Here we go. You see, you can just peel it right off with your hands, or you can use a knife. I wouldn't suggest any kind of a peeler because the pumpkin itself is already cooked. As you can see, it's pretty easy to do. Nothing real special about it, you just keep going. We're going to do this to the entire pumpkin, everything that we cooked. Once we get that all done, we'll take the immersion blender, which is right next to me here on the table, and we'll make a puree out of it. And if you're going to dehydrate the pumpkin, you're going to need a little bit of liquid added back in from what cooked out. So down in the bottom of the pan, there is the liquid that's left over from the cooking. It's a little bit of the water we put in, but mostly it's the juice from the pumpkin. And before you dehydrate it, you can take some of that pumpkin juice and put it into the bowl when you're using your immersion blender and add it back in. That will allow it to dehydrate more easily because it'll allow you to spread it out on the trays and make it thinner. In dehydrating, the thinner the better, up to a point. You want to be able to spread it easily, and you want it to dry quickly, and you want it to dry uniformly, or as uniformly as possible. It looks kind of stringy when you're peeling it off this way. It's not bad. Pumpkin is kind of stringy. So just put it all in the bowl, and when we blend it up and puree it, it will become smooth and delicious, and you can use it for whatever you're going to. The pictures that we showed towards the beginning of this video, of all those different colors pumpkin, I was so lucky to get those pumpkins. They were a gift. And I'm not sure if there's a difference in the flavor. Over the next few days, up to 2 weeks, I'm going to be cooking each of those. And I'm going to be trying them to see what it tastes like, if there's any difference. And I will be making a video on that as I go along. And once I've tasted them all and cooked them all down, I'll put that video out and let you know. But just to recap, There were some orange pumpkins, a large one and a small one. The small one is known as a pie pumpkin. It's supposedly sweeter, although I've never used a pie pumpkin, so I don't have any personal knowledge. Then we have a green one, we have a white one, and we have a mottled one. It's very strange looking. It's sort of a white background with orange and green veins running through it. There's our pumpkin. The meat's all there. And I'm just going to pour this juice, most of it, in there. Let me dry my hands a little bit. And we'll get busy with the blender. I'm sorry for the noise, but it's kind of a noisy chore. Here we go. And there you have it. We have some lovely pumpkin puree ready to either dehydrate or to make a pumpkin pie. Now I'm going to go get the dehydration trays and get everything ready and show you how I do that, and I'll be back in a moment. I have what's commonly called fruit leather or fruit roll-up trays that go in my dehydrator. And what I'm going to do is just scoop out some of this wonderful puree and spread it out. You don't want it too thick because, again, pumpkin is very dense and you want it to dry very well and rather evenly. I find it easier once I get 3 or 4 ladles full to use my spatula to kind of smooth it out a bit. And if you come up with a little lump like this, just move it out of the way. You can do something with that later. And I try and move it around a little bit like this to try and get it spread out more evenly on the tray. I'll do another one. We now have 2 ready to go in the dehydrator. I'm going to go put those in. I'll finish putting the pumpkin on trays and get them in the dehydrator, and I'll bring you back when they're done. Hi, good morning and welcome back to Kate's Kitchen. It's the next morning. I've pulled out 5 trays of pumpkin puree that has been drying in the dehydrator and put 5 more in. Now I'm in the process of breaking them up and getting them ready to store. So let me show you what I've got going. I think you'll be really pleased. Halfway through the dehydrating, I took the trays out and I turned the pumpkin over and let it dry on the back. This is 1 tray's worth of pumpkin. It's very crisp. It's very easy to break up. And all I'm doing is breaking it up and putting it into a little coffee grinder that I have. As you can see, it breaks very easily. It's very crisp and it's extremely dry, and that's what you want. You don't want any fluid or liquid left in it at all. You just break it up into your grinder into little pieces. We put the lid on it. We're going to grind up our dried pumpkin. Dried pumpkin does get very powdery, and if you don't pat the top and get it down, when you open the lid, it comes out on the air. The next step, pour the ground up pumpkin into our little strainer, and we go back and forth with a spoon and get the fine powder out. This is not really a necessary part of doing pumpkin, but I really like having the very fine, nicely ground dried pumpkin, and when I rehydrate it, I just like the way it comes out better if it's down to a nice fine powder. You can, however, just break it into small pieces like that and put it in the jars. It will rehydrate. Now, as you can see, I've still got quite a lot that didn't quite get ground up. So we put it back in. Now let's see if I can get it back in. There we go. pour these back into it and we'll grind it again. Now, I have a little bit of a surprise to show you in just a second. One of the reasons why I really like dehydrating my food instead of, well, I like to can too, but I prefer, especially on something like pumpkin, which is so dense it's hard to can real well. So I like dehydrating it. Now, what I have in the jar I'm going to show you is the equivalent of 2.5 trays this size full of pumpkin. Can you see how little that is? It's not even an inch in the bottom of a pint jar. A whole pumpkin, a 10-pound pumpkin last year, only filled a pint jar up a little over halfway. You can put a lot of pumpkin in these jars and they last forever in the pantry. So I'm going to go on, I'm going to continue breaking these up and grinding them up, and then I'm going to get the other 5 trays out of the dehydrator and get them ground up, and then we'll come back and show you what the final is. Now I just wanted to show you what 5 trays of pumpkin puree dehydrates to. First off, look at how beautiful and fine that powder is. It's lovely. That's all there is to it. It's just as fine and clean as it can be. And that is how far down 5 trays of pumpkin puree can dehydrate to. This will be beautiful in my pantry for a very long time.